Oral exams are no small feat. According to recent studies, as many as 75% of people suffer from a fear of public speaking, and oral exams, one of the most dreaded forms of assessment, push this anxiety to its limits. In fact, oral presentations consistently rank among the top fears in both academic and professional settings. For students, they can be a defining moment, often the difference between success and failure. And for someone like me, the pressure to perform in front of others felt absolutely paralyzing. My name is Daniel, and I'm 26 years old. For as long as I can remember, I've struggled with the thought of speaking in front of others. It didn't matter if it was a room full of classmates or just a small group of peers. Every single time, the terror of standing up and being judged made my heart race, my hands sweat, and my mind go blank. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the agony of oral exams. The first time I had to face an oral exam, I was 19. I was in my second year of college, and I still remember that sickening feeling when the professor announced that our final exam would be oral. My stomach dropped, my mind began spinning, and I spent the rest of the class trying to control the mounting panic that was growing inside me. Public speaking? In front of an audience? My classmates? My professor? How could I possibly do that? In the weeks leading up to the exam, the stress consumed me. I barely ate, barely slept, and the thought of standing in front of everyone kept replaying in my head. I practiced alone in my room, rehearsing my points, but the moment I pictured myself in front of the class, everything would fall apart. Words slipped from my grasp, my voice turned shaky, and my heart pounded so loudly that it felt like it would explode. I was terrified of the judgment, of looking foolish, of freezing under pressure. And that's exactly what happened. On the day of the exam, I could barely breathe. Walking into the classroom felt like walking to my execution. My legs trembled beneath me as I watched the first few students go up. Some of them nailed it, delivering their presentations with confidence, clarity, and composure. Others, like me, seemed just as scared, but somehow, they still managed to get through it. I tried to remind myself that it would only last a few minutes, but those minutes felt like hours in my mind. When my name was called, it felt as though the world tilted on its axis. I stood up, but my legs felt heavy, my vision narrowed, and by the time I reached the front of the room, I was trembling uncontrollably. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting, watching, judging. My professor gave me a reassuring nod, but it only made things worse. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. It was as if my brain had shut down completely, leaving me stranded in a sea of silence. The panic rose so quickly that it overwhelmed me. I stumbled over my first sentence, mispronounced a word, and felt my face flush with embarrassment. My heart pounded faster, my palms were slick with sweat, and I couldn't remember any of the points I had practiced so meticulously. My mind had gone completely blank, and I felt utterly humiliated standing there, exposed to the judgment of my peers and professor. It was like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. Every second felt like an eternity as I fumbled through the presentation, my voice wavering and cracking. I could see the looks of pity and discomfort on my classmates' faces, but worse than that was the disappointment in myself. I had worked so hard, prepared for hours, but when it mattered most, I couldn't hold it together. I stumbled through the rest of the exam, barely making sense of my own words, and by the time I finished, I felt utterly defeated. That night, I went back to my dorm room and cried. I had never felt so ashamed, so small, and so powerless. The failure hit me hard, and for weeks afterward, the memory of that humiliating experience replayed in my head over and over again. I couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy, and it haunted me every time I thought about future exams or presentations. The worst part wasn't even the failure itself. It was the fear that this would always be my reality. That no matter how much I prepared or practiced, I would never be able to control my nerves, that I would always be the person who crumbled under pressure. The anxiety followed me into every class, every group project, and every social situation where I might have to speak up or share my thoughts. It became this looming cloud over my head, constantly reminding me of my weaknesses. Years later, the fear hadn't left me. I still avoided any situation where I might have to speak in front of others, and the thought of oral exams or presentations made my stomach churn. Even though I had graduated, I couldn't escape the anxiety that had taken root in me during those years of academic pressure. I felt trapped by my own fear, unsure of how to move forward, and terrified of the thought that I might never overcome it. Every time I watched someone else speak effortlessly in front of a group, I couldn't help but feel envious. How did they make it look so easy? What was wrong with me that I couldn't do the same? I knew I had valuable things to say, but the fear of judgment, the fear of failure, and the fear of looking foolish kept me silent. It was as if I had built up a wall between myself and the world, and I didn't know how to break it down. The worst moments were in professional settings. During job interviews, I would freeze up the moment I had to explain my skills and experiences. My answers would come out disjointed, my voice shaky, and I would walk away knowing that I hadn't done myself justice. I missed out on opportunities, promotions, and even social events because I was too afraid to put myself out there. It wasn't just about oral exams anymore. It had become a pattern of avoidance that permeated every aspect of my life. I was stuck in a cycle of fear and avoidance, and every failed attempt only reinforced the belief that I wasn't good enough, that I would always struggle with this. The anxiety weighed me down, keeping me from reaching my full potential, and I couldn't see a way out. Every time I had to speak, whether in an exam, a meeting, or a casual conversation, that same panic would bubble up inside me, threatening to take over. The fear had taken so much from me, my confidence, my self-esteem, and my belief in myself. I had spent years feeling like a failure, like I would never be able to overcome this mountain that stood in my way. I remember the turning point vividly. After years of feeling trapped by my fear, I knew I couldn't continue living in the shadows of anxiety. The missed opportunities, the paralyzing dread of every oral exam or presentation, the constant avoidance, it all started to wear me down to the point where I knew something had to change. But where would I even begin? I had no idea how to break free from the grip that public speaking anxiety had over me. The first step I took was acknowledging that I couldn't do this on my own. I started searching for professional help and stumbled upon cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, as one of the most effective treatments for social anxiety and public speaking fears. It was terrifying to admit that I needed therapy for something so simple as speaking in front of others, but the truth was, it wasn't simple for me. The anxiety was real, and it was holding me back in every part of my life. My therapist helped me realize that my fear of judgment and failure was rooted in perfectionism. I had always believed that I had to be flawless in every presentation or exam, that making a mistake meant I wasn't good enough. We worked through these deep-seated beliefs, and slowly, I began to understand that making mistakes didn't define me. It was how I handled them that mattered. One of the most transformative moments came when my therapist introduced me to exposure therapy. I had to face my fears, bit by bit, in controlled environments. It wasn't easy. In fact, the first time I had to speak in a small group session, I thought I was going to pass out. But with each exposure, the fear began to lose its power. I practiced speaking in front of a mirror, recording myself, and even participating in mock presentations. Slowly, I started to feel more in control. The nerves were still there, but they didn't overwhelm me like they used to. I also started incorporating mindfulness techniques into my routine. Breathing exercises, visualization, and meditation helped calm my racing thoughts before an oral exam or presentation. The more I practiced, the more I realized that I could take control of my anxiety instead of letting it control me. Still, I knew I needed more. I needed a structured plan, something that could guide me step by step on how to navigate these high-pressure situations. That's when I discovered a community of people who had faced the same struggles. They shared their stories of overcoming their fears, and one common thread kept coming up: practical techniques combined with mental conditioning. I became obsessed with finding more strategies, reading about communication skills, body language, and ways to project confidence. But nothing prepared me for the day I found myself standing in front of a classroom again for another oral exam. This time, though, something had shifted. I had spent months preparing mentally and emotionally, but more than that, I had learned to let go of the unrealistic pressure I had always placed on myself. I wasn't perfect, but I was prepared. I focused on my breathing, keeping my mind present and calm. As I began speaking, I felt the usual anxiety creep in, but I didn't let it control me. I finished the exam without breaking down, without freezing, and for the first time, I walked out feeling proud of myself. As I continued to push past my boundaries, I knew I needed a comprehensive resource to guide me through the intricacies of oral exams and presentations. That's when I came across a game changer. The Oral Exam Oracle. Master the Art of Oral Exams and Presentations. This book was unlike anything I'd read before. It didn't just cover the basics. It delved deep into every aspect of preparation, mental conditioning, and the art of communication. It wasn't just about delivering a speech. It was about mastering your presence, your words, and your mindset. Every chapter in this book resonated with me. I followed the actionable steps to the letter, from structuring my presentations to building the kind of confidence that lasted long after I left the podium. Practicing the techniques in this book transformed my approach completely. It wasn't an overnight change, but every day, I noticed a shift in how I felt about public speaking. Instead of dreading it, I started to see it as an opportunity to connect, to share my ideas, and to showcase my strengths. If you're watching this and struggling the way I once did, if oral exams or presentations feel like an insurmountable challenge, I cannot recommend this book enough. The Oral Exam Oracle gave me the tools I needed to overcome years of anxiety and self-doubt. If you're ready to take control of your fear and finally feel confident in your speaking abilities, grab a copy of this book. You can get a digital copy at Librify.com, and the link is in the description. Believe me, this book can be the turning point you've been looking for.